comparing work-life balance before and after uni. Because I would always assume, even after what you said the last time you talked, I would still assume that uni is way more harder.
In terms of work-life balance?
Yeah. And in terms of like general stress levels.
It's you crazy. You're waffling. As in, all right, let me try and think of it. How do I articulate this? So basically, I think in terms of work-life balance, it depends on your job. I'm not gonna lie to you. It depends on your job and it depends on what you do. If, say, you work let's say you're an investment banker, right? Your hours sort of vary 24/7. You're not really working like a consistent, hours. Like I say, for example, one day you might be in the office at 9 a.m. and you'd leave that day at, let's say, 8. The next day you might come in and you might actually come in at, let's say, 7 a.m., 7:30, and you leave at like 11 p.m. So it sort of varies. And then sometimes you might have to come in on Saturday, you might have to come in on Sunday. So it's ridiculously hard to predict sometimes. And then, for example, let's say I'm like with you, Jordan, let's meet up this Saturday, right? And then Saturday morning comes, I get a text being like, oh shit, something's happening, I need to be in the office. And that kind of stuff, that kind of work-life balance, it depends on your job, because at certain points, at certain times in your career, it's sort of not really dependent on you, but it's dependent on what you do. And I think in my case, it's better because like, I'd say that my hours are fairly consistent. I probably come in around 9 and I probably leave around 6:37, around that kind of time, 6:37, around that time. That's like sort of my standard set of hours, and I don't really come in on weekends. So then at least with that, I've sort of got like a consistent hour. I've got consistent hours, so I can sort of balance my life or plan or schedule my life around that. With uni, I think the difference in uni is you just have so much more freedom, because let's say you had a lecture at 10 a.m. You have the opportunity to be like, okay, I'm not actually going to go to this lecture. I'm going to revise at home. Or let me just skip the lecture and come into uni at 11. I'll just catch up in the library. Or let me just not go into uni at all today, or I'll come in tomorrow. Or you have so much flexibility and freedom in terms of the choice that you make that you don't really have in terms of work. For example, with work, you have to be in the office. Unless you're like sick on your holiday, you're going to be in the office probably. So then like, I think in terms of, I'd say with balance, it depends on your schedule. I feel like when you're working and when you're employed, it's much easier to have a regimented schedule where you can sort of plan and have like a more like balanced routine with your life. In terms of uni, because everything's a little bit more flexible and you have a lot more freedom, it's more dependent on the person and how sort of strict you are with your routine, how regimented you are. But the amount of freedom that that's given to you as a uni student, I feel like that's something that you probably won't ever get again unless you're like unemployed, or unless you're sort of like taking a sabbatical, or unless you're just doing your own thing. That kind of freedom that you get as a uni student is something that you would always miss when you like make that transition and you jump from uni to work, in my opinion.
I hear that. I just think like maybe it's because I do engineering, which is like one of the more intensive courses, like similar to like medicine, you'd argue. But that my problem with uni is that you come in, you do your 9 until 3, 9 till 4, whatever, how long your day is, and then even when you finish, you got to go back and do more. Say again?
You were going to uni at 9 a.m. You were actually going to your 9 a.m. lectures.
I mean, my parents are listening, so of course.
Fair enough.
But no, even if you don't, I mean, I see your point there. Like, you have more, I guess, discretion on how you use your time at uni. You can afford to miss like a couple of lectures and still do the work.
Yeah.
But I think my perception on it is like, even when you do finish your typical like 9 to 5 day at uni, you still got to come back and do coursework and then catch up some extra lecture notes. So you never really have that downtime unless you obviously manufacture it yourself. Whereas at work, I guess it's different for banking, but in like in most other industries, you come in at 9, you finish at 5, and then from 5 p.m. till 9 a.m. the next day is basically your time to do whatever you want. And you have weekends to yourself as well. There's no need to like keep doing work on week. I mean, you said that sometimes if there's a call on a Saturday, you might have to go into the office, but
yeah, I don't know. I get what you're thinking. I get what you're trying to say in terms of like with uni, there's always work to be done. Like, for example, you leave uni, or for example, you go home, there's sort of revision to do, or there's sort of coursework to mash, or there's sort of like an exam to revise to. And with work, as soon as you leave the office, you're not really thinking about work. You're mentally away from that. And I get that. But on the other hand, or like on the other scale, you can sort of say that, for example, with uni, it's sort of dependent on you as a person. That's the big change. That's the game changer here, right? It's just dependent on you as a person. With me, for example, what I just tended to do was, especially during exam season, exam revision, I'd be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. This is this is what I'm going to do today in terms of the task I'm going to achieve. This is how much I'm going to revise. This is how much I'm going to do. Like, I might do like 1 or 2 past papers today, and that's it. I'm done for today. So what I'd do is, for example, I'd come in at, let's say, during exam season, I'd probably come into uni at 10. I'd mash my work. I'd get my exam questions done. I'd get my, maybe I said, let me revise over these 2 chapters today, and I'm done. So when I'm done, I'm just like, all right, cool. I've done it today. Let's say if I finish at 2 p.m., I'm going to leave at 2 p.m. If it takes me till 6 p.m., I'll leave at 6 p.m. If it takes me until 8 p.m., I'll stay till 8 p.m. to just get the list of things that I wanted to do for that day done. But as soon as I get that stuff done, I can just leave. And as soon as I left uni, I didn't care about my uni work, because I was like, I did what I needed to do today, and I'll continue what I need to do tomorrow. Like, I think it's just dependent on you as a person, rather than like with work, for example. Obviously you might get stressed out about work, and you might be thinking about, things that you need to do, or like, for example, if there's work that you might think is not up to standard, that might like always be continuously on your mind. But at least with work, when you leave the office, you're not really expected to do more work, or you're not really doing more work anyway. But I think it's just about being more sort of regimented. It's sort of being a bit more strict and being a bit more honest with yourself as a uni student. And I think that's just because you have so much more freedom to yourself. Like, do not underestimate the freedom that you get as a uni student. Like, for example, if you wanted as a uni student, let's say it's January, you're like, fuck it, I'm going to go to Spain for a week. You can just do that. You don't need to sort of go to your uni and be like, oh, I'm going to go abroad for a week. They don't care. Like, it's not going to matter. At least with work, you have to ask your manager, you have to ask your team if you can take days off, or you can sort of, like, it's not just about you anymore. It's sort of about you and the team and the dynamic and what needs to be done for your projects, what needs to be done for your work. At least with uni, it's all on you. And that is a feeling that you can't replicate anywhere else.
That's very true. I guess it comes down to whether you're comfortable, being given a structure, or if you're good enough to manage your time yourself effectively. I think I'm definitely in the latter.
Yeah, no, it takes, I'm not gonna lie, it does take time to adjust. I remember when I was in first year uni, so right before I joined uni, I started working at JD in Oxford Street. And that just took up very my time. I don't know why it took so much of my time. I don't know why I put so much effort into JD Sports. To this day, I'm still thinking, why the fuck did I do that? But like, for example, when I first started, I think I was working like 20, 30 hours a week during uni. And I think for the first half of my first year, I was basically doing like 30 hours of work at JD Sports. And I basically just didn't go to uni at all, because I was like, yeah, I'm just at work and I'll catch up later. And that catches up. It bit me in the ass in like January. And then I was like, all right, cool. Let me switch my routine. And I just told my manager at JD, I'm only going to work weekends from now on. And then I started going to uni during like Monday to Friday, but still it took me, I think it took me a solid year and a half. I think by the time I got into like second year, that's when I probably sort of like gave myself a routine and sort of gave myself a proper work ethic. I think first year was completely an adjustment year for me, in terms of learning how to study, learning how to give myself a routine. Because I just got lost. I was lost. I'm sorry, but like when you think about it, I put more work and effort into my ability as a sales assistant at JD Sports than my youth degree. And I think about that, and I'm just like, if I look back at myself, I would slap my first year self. He made money. I'll give myself credit for that. First year Osman made some money, but it was not worth it. It was not worth it.
Nightmare. That's interesting. I feel like I did a similar thing with Domino's in my first year, but then my excuse is always that I'm driven more by reward than by because obviously uni is more delayed gratification, right? It takes 4 or 3 years to get the bag out of that. But I'm so much more driven by put in 3 hours and you get paid for this, or you put out one podcast today and you get X number of views. Like, I just like the instant reward strategy. It's probably not good for my long-term growth, but I guess I recognize that trait of mine, and that's kind of how I justify the effort that I put into work.